Good morning. I am Abby Sudvarg, and I am the board chair of the Peace Economy Project. We have been an organization since 1977, and we're here today to talk about one of the industries that is clearly not a part of a peace economy. The gun industry is a huge industry. And according to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is the trade association for firearms, ammunition, this industry is responsible for as much as over $90 billion in total economic activity in the country in 2023. And this doesn't include the economy part that has to do with people paying taxes. This is just manufacturing and sale of a particular industry. The total economic impact of the firearm and ammunition industry in the United States increased from $19 billion in 2008 to $90 billion in 2023. The NSSF estimates that there were 4.3 million new gun owners in 2023. They have not yet released any information for 2024. So this is the gun manufacturing's own industry report. Not only are guns a huge industry as part of our economy, but it's also a huge export from our country. Donald Trump complains that the people coming into this country from south of the border are criminals, that they are coming illegally and bringing violence, which of course there's no significant evidence for that with regard to immigrants. But we are exporting a huge industry of guns. According to CBS News, and this was reported in December 22, 2024, so just 2 months ago, an estimated 200,000 to 500,000 handguns have been exported to Mexico every year. These are mostly smuggled, illegal, but that's where the industry is. And this industry starts legally. These guns are being manufactured legally. These guns are arming our cities. We all know that. We know that the number of mass shootings has increased ever since the pandemic. And it's our children in their schools, it's our neighbors in grocery stores that are being killed. According to the Gun Violence Archive, the number of mass shootings, and mass shootings are defined as 4 or more victims. They may be killed or injured. This has escalated since the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's persisted. Last year, there was a recorded 515 mass shootings. In 2021, that's the worst year, there were 689 mass shootings in this country. On February 12th of this year, so just 3 days ago, there was a mass shooting in Ferguson. Like Ferguson needs more trouble. 1 victim was killed, 3 were injured. And this does not include whoever is considered the suspect or perpetrator. These are innocent bystanders. Firearms are the leading cause of death for young people ages 18 to 25. The firearm suicide rate among this group has increased by 41% in the last decade. Firearms kill more young people than motor vehicle accidents do. This is a real shift in our demographic, in our public health issues. These aren't very cheerful things to talk about first thing in the morning, but there's really no way to talk about gun violence with like an opening joke or anything like that. But I apologize to you for the fact that this is all quite grim. According to the CDC, as reported by the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, there were 2,526 gun deaths in 2022 among 1 to 17-year-olds, averaging to nearly 7 per day. Firearms accounted for nearly a third of all deaths among 15 to 17-year-olds. From 2013 to 2022, the rate of gun suicide among Black youth ages 10 to 17 tripled, and for Hispanic youth aged 10 to 17 more than doubled. Black male teens and young adults aged 15 to 34 account for 34% of all gun homicides during 2022, even though they represent 2% of the whole US population. The gun homicide rate for this group was 24 times higher than that for white males in the same group. Over half, 55% of deaths among Black older teens, 15 to 17, in 2022 were caused by guns. This is a public health crisis. But unfortunately, one of the executive orders from Donald Trump on January 21st was dissolving the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Even though 18 to 20-year-olds commit gun homicides at triple the rate of adults 21 years and older, recently, in January, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans ruled that any bans on 18-year-olds buying handguns is unconstitutional. They ruled that the federal law banning handguns for people 18 to 21 infringes on the Second Amendment rights of 18 to 20-year-olds. Again, keeping in mind that 18 to 20-year-olds, and if you're a parent or have ever been a teenager, you know that even though you're a legal adult at 18, you are not fully formed. Black lives still matter. Unfortunately, there is a trend now that is reversing the progress we made after George Floyd's death. Donald Trump recently pardoned Officer Terrence Sutton from his second-degree murder and Andrew Sabofsky, who was charged with conspiracy. They covered up evidence, they changed information. After the killing of Karan Hilton Brown, the officers chased him for more than 10 blocks for riding a scooter without a helmet. That was his crime. Hilton Brown rode out of an alley into a busy Kennedy Street, and he was struck by a passing car and died. This is what Donald Trump said about his pardon. They were arrested, put in jail for 5 years because they went after an illegal. This gentleman was not illegal. He was a US citizen. His parents were US citizens. But somehow any crime that happens now is done by an illegal, and somehow not wearing a helmet on a scooter constitutes a crime that deserves dying. Since 2015, police officers had fatally shot this was a 2021 report. Police officers had fatally shot at least 135 unarmed Black men and women nationwide, according to an NPR investigation. At least 75% of the officers were white. Black lives do still matter, and gun violence perpetrated by police officers against unarmed Black people still matters. And we encourage you to sign our Valentines to those lost lives, and they will be forwarded to your representative. Blue lives also matter. In that stroke of a pen on January 21st, all of the people who were involved in the January 6, 2021 insurrection against our government were pardoned. Included among those people was an ex-military person, Edmund Richards, who was responsible for the 2004 only manslaughter after shooting a handcuffed Iraqi cowherder in the head with his rifle. He received at that time 3 years military confinement and a dishonorable discharge. He admitted that he stayed at the front of the mob on January 6th, fighting against police for almost 2 hours, and he struck officers with a baton. Blue lives do still matter. According to Peter Scharf, who's a criminologist and professor in the School of Public Health at Louisiana State University and co-author of The Badge and the Bullet, Police Use of Deadly Force. It's actually very rare for a police officer to be involved in a shooting at all, unarmed or armed. But many of these individuals, these police officers, excuse me, who were involved in these shootings were involved twice or three times, and many of them had been dismissed from one police department because of their behavior and then hired by another. Another person involved in the January 6th insurrection, Jacob Chansley, who was kind of the poster child. He was wearing all the paint and wearing horns. He was also pardoned, and he announced that he plans to buy firearms after receiving the pardon. We have to stand up. It's looking bleak right now, and our federal government, and in Missouri, our state government are supporters of the Second Amendment to the extreme, to the point where the rights of individuals to be safe, again, in their schools, in their grocery stores, are being abridged. On a federal level, Josh Hawley is a co-sponsor of legislation that would make it impossible for people to sue gun manufacturers for the outcome of their products. On a state level, we have 2 petitions out on the table for you that are legislation on a state level. One is Senate Bill 147. This is called by some people the right to murder bill. This would make it so that there's a presumption of reasonableness under the section that the defendant believes such force was necessary to defend himself or herself or a third party from what he or she believed to be the use or imminent use of unlawful force by another person. And this refers, the law already allows that for a person in their home. This allows an employee to shoot, to pull out their Glock and shoot someone if they state that they believed that they were in danger or that somebody else was in danger. What that means is if someone who is homeless and mentally ill goes into a Starbucks and is ranting and raving, not showing a weapon, but ranting and raving, an employee can pull out a gun and shoot them, and there will be a presumption of innocence if this law passes, that they had a right to shoot because they felt unsafe. The other piece of legislation is Senate Bill number 77. Currently, it is against the law for anyone on any bi-state transportation to have a concealed weapon. This would make it legal for them to do so. This just passed out of committee, but it has not yet hit the full state Senate. Please sign the petitions. Please sign our Valentines to those lives lost. These are bleak times, but we have to stand up. We cannot feel such despair about the current situation politically in our state or in our country that we give up and just hide our heads and say there's nothing we can do. We have to keep standing up and saying we resist, we disagree, we're concerned, and we won't stop trying to end the violence. And I thank you all very much.
Please give Abby a round of applause. I know that's not easy to do. My name is Susan Lively. I'm known by the stage name Spitfire. I'm a local spoken word artist and poet and an event producer and host, photographer. I am here to welcome you to the Deaconess Center, the Valentine's Day Vigil Against Gun Violence. I will be your host for the day. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for joining us. We gather in love, we gather in remembrance, and we gather today in action. We honor the lives lost to gun violence. We stand in solidarity with the survivors, and we commit ourselves to change. Gun violence is not just a statistic, it's a deeply personal and painful reality for too many families in St. Louis and across our country. Today, we come together to mourn, reflect, and most importantly, to act. Let us use this day not only to grieve, but to mobilize for meaningful change. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your commitment to a safer future. Everyone, please welcome Alderwoman Pam Boyden.
First of all, let me thank you all for having me, and I apologize for the mix-up, but I am honored that you were gracious to allow me to speak. So thank you so much, because this is something that's very dear and near to my heart. I don't think people realize, as the young lady prior to me stated, how gun violence has a chain reaction to families. And so even if the person is murdered or killed by whatever means, it not only impacts that immediate family, but we have to also think it impacts the victim's family that has been victimized by that. So you have a person that was murdered, the person that did the murder, then you're dealing with the mothers, you're dealing with the fathers and the children. And so something that's really close to me is the children that are impacted in our communities. Because there was a time in my life, and I'm looking around, so a lot of people are my age, you never heard about children and women being killed. That was just a big no-no. And so now this is something that's become more of the norm than the extra, because when you would hear about it, people were like, oh my God. But now it's just becoming a norm in our community, and we become null to this. And I think we need to really not only push legislators, because people need to understand the legislators that are pushing these gun bills and whatever, these are people that raise their children to handle guns at 5 and 6 years old. And they're teaching them to hunt for deer, rabbit, those. Because I actually went and had conversations with them, and I said, St. Louis is not that. We're an urban city. We're not hunting. That's not what we're here for. We're not trying to get food. That's not our purpose. I said, and then these guys have become so creative, and they're adding pieces to guns that makes it even more devastating to families. I can't even begin to be where a mother is. And you hear about people shot up 10, 11 times. I can't even imagine that. And bullets into somebody's body. So I support this. I think we need to be more aggressive, because this gun violence is mental illness, it's environment, it's behaviors that we have to change. And so I never in my life thought I would be a time where we would be scared for our children to go to school. Whoever thought that they would have to have drills? When I was in school, you had drills for storms or wars, but now you're having drills if it's an intruder into the building. So that's scary to me. So that's telling me our children are dealing with PTSD every day. Just imagine that. I went to a community school, and they had a PTA meeting, and the grandmother said her granddaughter saw 3 of their family members killed, and they were 5 years old. Can you imagine the kids seeing this? Your uncle or whoever, brother, and they got shot in front of you, and you 5 years old. So that's a norm to them. So we have to start retraining our children, our communities to make people understand this is an illness. This is something we have to address holistically. And so when we have families that are impacted by this, we have to do a holistic approach to help those families. Because gun violence is real. And the people in Jefferson City, they don't understand one way or the other. And I think a lot of them don't want to understand. When I asked them, I said, so why wouldn't you just exclude St. Louis and make it where these assault rifles were illegal? You know what they told me? If we do that, then you'll want something else. Who thinks like that? All we're trying to do is save the babies and families that's in our communities. And so I need people to understand gun violence does not discriminate. It does not say what color or age you are anymore. It's for anybody. And so in my community, and I tell people, when I have seniors that can't sit on their porch because they get shot in the shoulder by a stray bullet, that's kind of scary. And so I don't want that. I want to do whatever I can legislatively and publicly to fight against this. So anything you can do to help me, I'll be glad to work with you more. But I support you all 100%. And I think we have a big fight on our hands because of, as this lady said, who's in Washington and now who's in Jefferson City. Thank you.
I please put it together for Pam Boyden. Thank you. So I was lucky enough to be friends with the former poet laureate of St. Louis, a gentleman named Dr. Michael Castro. So I wanted to share one of his pieces with you today. Dr. Castro wasn't really a spoken word artist, but this is kind of a performance piece. When he did it, it was really electrifying. I don't think I can really do it justice, but I'm going to try my best. This is called America Loves Its Guns More Than Its Children. America loves its guns more than its children. America hunts its children down in the streets, mows them down in the schools, massacres them in the mall. America loves its guns more than its children, keeps its gun with it at all times, at all costs, would rather wage war than feed or educate poor kids. Would rather everyone be armed than everyone be smart. America loves its guns more than its children. America carries its gun in the store, in the bar, in the church. Anywhere you might be, make you feel safe. America loves its guns more than its children, buries its children, doesn't tuck them in at night, doesn't read them stories in bed. Instead, America, lonely and stressed, sleep with its gun under its pillow. America dreams of its guns and wakes up groggy and all wet. America sells guns to crazy people, sells weapons of war to madmen militias, sells guns out of the trunks of its cars. America loves its guns on TV, in the movies, on the news, loves its shooting range, its gun shows, its American sniper. America is entertained by guns. America courts young minds with gun culture. America's love of gun kills love of life. America blows its own dream to bits. America buys guns and cuts education funding, loan sharks as college students, takes them out with debt, gives tax breaks to masters of war. America loves its guns more than its children, loves its guns while its infrastructure crumbles, loves its gun while its air and water thicken and sicken. America protects gun owners, neglects the environment. NRA America says guns didn't kill 30,000 American deaths by guns per year. America is armed and dangerous. America makes bigger and better guns, sends its children off to battle, is the world's biggest arms merchant. American guns are big business are us. America loves its guns while its jobs flee overseas. It's mowing down its children right and left in the streets, in the schools, in the malls. Mowing them down right here today, mowing down their present, mowing down their future. America loves its guns more than its children. That was Dr. Michael Castro. Next up to the stage, gun violence is personal, impacting real families, children, and futures. Please welcome Katrina Canyon, Executive Director of the Peace Economy Project, as she shares some of her beautiful poetry with us.
Thank you, Susan. Abby, did you want to make a comment first? About your way. Okay. So I will be speaking later today, but I thought I'd share a few of my poems because I have been impacted by gun violence, and I was just moved enough that I wanted to share a few poems after hearing what you had to say. This first one was nominated for a Pushcart Prize. It is called A Petition for Unrecognized Children. Nation of various plump children, can you pull out our eyes? Can you remove an owl from our nest and bleed the heartland and our bowels? Our sickness against us, assimilation or breaking us, mortality. You shoot at our children, you run down, you argue. How can cream clot the blood? You scorn them, our children. You are as you are, politicians. Your tongue kills faster than bullets. Bile will fill your craw. If I accept you, gravel will clog my throat. Believing you steals my loyalty from them. Bowing to my knees, the flaxen thread on my skin is a wound that won't heal, and a volcano and an orchid in my hands. If my daughter dies in a shooting, do not bury her. Lay her at the feet of those made from stone so that they may see their work. If my son dies, raise him in the place of the flag so the world can see what we worship. And for the rest, leave the graves empty and file the bodies before the throne and join the corpses hand by hand across the Washington Mall. You killed them, our children, and you will kill more before the sun sets and pluck out our eyes to spare us. Thank you. I was going to grad school in Boston when the events in Ferguson unfolded. And being in the close-knit school that we were, everyone was asked me, so what's it like in Ferguson? What should we do? And the class actually gathered together in protest in support of Ferguson and St. Louis. And they asked me to write a poem, and I wrote this poem. After Ferguson, if I sit and write a poem about the injustice of it all, what would it change really?
If I tried hard enough, people would probably like it on Facebook and call it insightful. I'm sure if I worked a little harder, maybe revised it once or twice, maybe someone would be moved to tears. But what would that change? Poems were written in Watts, and all we have are the towers and stories from my mother who said, "This place was beautiful once." We wrote poems for Rodney King and Reginald Denny, and the only thing that changed in South Central was the name. I don't even know what to call it anymore, and I was born there. We write poems when Emmett Till dies. We write poems when Trayvon Martin dies. Jordan Davis dies, and we write poems. Michael Brown dies, and we write poems. White men kill black men kill black men by shooting, by lynching, and we write poems. Black men die, and we write poems. Black men die, and we write poems. Black men die, and we write poems. These lines won't change. Thank you very much. Yeah. Abby said she had a few words.
So I don't want you to think that the poster falling behind us has any significance or symbolic meaning. It was just not enough tape. I am a family physician. I work at Family Care Health Centers, which is one of the federally qualified health centers here in St. Louis. And in October of 2022, there was a shooting here in St. Louis at the Center for Visual and Performing Arts, which is part of the St. Louis School District. Some of you, many of you are old enough to remember the shooting in Columbine and how shocked we all were when that high school shooting happened. Bowling for Columbine was the movie that came out of that. We were shocked. Are we shocked anymore? We're sad. We're anguished, but we're no longer shocked. The children who were killed, the teachers who were killed in October of 2022 here in our own city their families have been terribly impacted. The children who weren't killed, and a number of them are my patients, they were hiding in closets. One young girl who was in that school jumped out of a second-story window when the shooter came into her classroom. We need to be shocked again. We can't think of this as a new normal. It may be the new norm, but we cannot think of it as the new normal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abby. Oops, try it again. Thank you so much, Abby. Okay, next up. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break so we can set up the PowerPoint, and we will return with Speaker Justin Mosley. Thank you all so much.
Hello? Hi. I give up. So my quick announcement is that if you want to light candles, there are, while we're on the break, there are candles there. We also have a chapel. If you want to take a moment for quiet reflection, you go out the door and you make a right and a left. We are here to support you in whatever you need. And thank you all for coming. And like we said, we're going to set up a PowerPoint, and then Justin will be on in a few minutes.
Now the other way. There. Lythia's my girl.
Testing, 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 testing.
What, this is mine.
Okay. Is that
I'm
going
turning
to
it
the
off
Zoom?
because it might be interfering.
Is that going to the Zoom?
No, this is mine.
Oh, okay. That's my.
To get your name. Okay. Is your name in here? Perfect. Okay, perfect. And you're the executive, what was it?
Executive Director of Peace Economy Project. Thank you for coming.
Executive Director of Peace Economy Project. And I was gonna say you had a beautiful poem. I wanted to try and give it to them in case they wrote it.
Oh, wow, thank you. And our name is on the back. And
Okay,
we're
perfect.
very modest, so that's kind of.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I applaud everyone.
Thank you so much.
This will be on, I don't know how the sports will push us around, but if it's not on the 4 and 5, it'll be on the 9 and 10. So I'm hoping they pull some sound because it was a beautiful poem, but yeah,
Thank you.
of course. Thank you so much. I gotta go somewhere else now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there you are.
flashing. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Valentine's Day Vigil Against Gun Violence. My name is Susan Lively, known by the stage name Spitfire. I am your host for the day. We are so honored to be working with the Deaconess Foundation today. And next up to the stage, we're going to be talking about collaborative efforts to prevent gun violence in our communities. Gun violence is a public health crisis, and the only way to combat it is through community collaboration. We must work together, law enforcement, community leaders, families, and organizations to create sustainable solutions. Here to talk with us about collaborative efforts to prevent gun violence in our communities is Justin Mosley of the St. Louis Area Violence Prevention Commission. Everyone, please give Justin a warm welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name again is Justin Mosley. I'm the project director with the St. Louis Area Violence Prevention Commission. I specialize in youth violence programs. So VPC is a cross-sector collaboration. We partner to promote and advocate resources for different organizations that support the reduction of gun violence. On your left, you'll see the PowerPoint. And we can go. Oh, I'm sorry, it's right behind me. Okay. Next slide, please. So the determinants of violence are multiple, complex, and often interrelated. And a successful strategy includes the participation of a broad group of individuals and a range of activities that link with, build upon, and add value to each other. So what does that mean? So VPC, we partner with organizations. We're sponsored by the St. Louis Mental Health Board. So we do outreach in the community through different organizations, and we're funded by various sources as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so you'll see that we have over 130 different agencies that we partner with. These are community organizations. They're residents of the city of St. Louis. There's economic workforce development, faith organizations, the government, your departments of health. These are all partners, as there's no one solution or one organization that is going to end gun violence. It takes a collaborative effort of different organizations and individuals. Next slide, please. And one more slide. Okay, so objective number one that we have for VPC is to coordinate the community level response to non-fatal shootings to increase the number of individuals affected by gun violence who can access services. So a lot of times when we talk about gun violence, we're talking about those who have passed on, but we also have those victims who have to live with the consequences of being victims of gun violence. So we want to support partnerships of organizations that are serving victims of gun violence. We want to support the implementation of Handle with Care, and we want to strengthen the community healing resources. Next slide. Okay, so for those victims of non-fatal shootings, we have the Gun Violence Response Network. So anyone who witnessed or was a victim of a shooting can call 211, press option 6, and they'll get access to different resources, including the ones listed: emotional support, crime victims compensation, help navigating the criminal justice system, and referral to community resources. Next slide. Okay, I mentioned Handle with Care previously, and also our Alderwoman mentioned this earlier as well, Alderwoman Boynton, that children are often witnesses of gun violence. Even if they're not the victims, they witness something traumatic, and Handle with Care is a program that we have. One of our directors at the Mental Health Board helped bring it to St. Louis, It was adopted in St. Louis and ultimately adopted by the Missouri Highway Patrol. This notifies schools that a youth was present at the scene of a traumatic incident. So if a 10-year-old witnessed a shooting in their neighborhood, the Missouri Highway Patrol contacts the school, which then notifies the social workers, counselors, and other permanent administrative staff to monitor this student to, as it says, handle with care. So this student, if they're acting out, if they miss school for a few days, however that behavior manifests itself, handle with care is designed for the staff to be aware and to treat that youth with the love, the care, the appropriate response to what they're going through. And oftentimes a youth, it doesn't manifest right away, not the next day, not the next week, 6 months down the line, something happens, something similar, somebody says something that reminds them of that event. So this is an ongoing process of supporting these youth through Handle with Care. Next slide. All right, and the third objective that we had was new opportunities for wellness. These are healing houses. They provide non-traditional therapy to victims in communities where violence is prevalent. So these are holistic approaches, different types of therapy. It just allows the community to come together, share their stories, deal with the grief, deal with the trauma, express themselves. And these have been done the last 2 years, 2023, Walnut Park East, West, and Baden, and 2024, O'Fallon, College Hill, JVL, and Fairground. There will be more healing houses in 2025. Next slide. Objective number 2, increase the number of evidence-based programs and trauma-informed violence prevention programs funded by VPC and core funding partners that address the root causes of violence. So we want to support the implementation of violence prevention strategies that address the root causes of violence, increase access to high-quality violence prevention programs, and increase the capacity of communities to mobilize and lead neighborhood-based violence prevention programs. Okay, so most recently, summer 2024, we did what we call extended hours at recreation centers. One of the biggest things that I deal with personally in violence prevention of youth is they often say they didn't have anywhere they can go. They didn't feel loved. People want us off the street and not causing trouble, but we don't feel welcome anywhere. There's nowhere we can go. So currently, most of the libraries, your recreation centers, and any youth-based program, they close at 7:00 p.m. or 8:00 p.m. So those youth who are disconnected from school, disconnected from resources, or just in general have a hard home life and don't want to go home, where can they go? Whose care are they in besides the streets? So we sponsored extended hours at recreation centers. We have the 2024 numbers here, but we've done this the last 3 summers. 2024, we did it at Tandy Recreation Center and Cherokee Recreation Center. Instead of closing at 8 p.m. on weekend nights, Fridays and Saturdays, they stayed open until midnight. So sometimes these were drop-in hours. They did midnight basketball. Sometimes it was sort of a party with a DJ and food, but these were hours where they knew every weekend they had somewhere safe they could go with security where there'd be no guns, no threat of gun violence, and they could just have a good time. Started off slow, and then by the end of the summer, these kids are really looking forward to it. It was really a way for them to have a weight off their shoulders where they can have a good time and decompress and actually commune with each other. You know, with social media, there's so many other distractions where kids are sort of in silos where they don't communicate with each other. They communicate online, and online communication often leads to problems as well. And that can be a cause of violence as well. So allowing them to have a safe place to go every weekend, particularly during the summer, something we've done. And we've done this in St. Louis City, and there are plans to expand that program to St. Louis County as well. I also heard Ferguson mentioned more than once by more than one speaker here. Last month, we sponsored an event in Ferguson at Gamers Island. That's a youth gaming center. They were able to go and play for about 4 hours. They have virtual reality, a ton of different resources there. And they also do workforce development. So they employ teams, help them get a business license, and many other programs that they have. So we are investing in these communities where the gun violence is most prevalent, but in particular, North City and North County. Okay, speaking of the events that we sponsor on our website, stlareavpc.org, there is a link to apply for a grant to fund a youth event. A first-time funded event, you can apply for up to $2,500 to host an event for youth up to age 19. So ages 19 and under. It needs to be something fun, something they would enjoy, but you're giving them an opportunity to, again, have somewhere safe to go to have a good time without the threat of gun violence. Most of our work previously has been in the city. But again, we are expanding our services and resources to the county to address gun violence in a regional approach, not just St. Louis City, not just St. Louis County, but a full collaborative regional approach. Next slide, please. Okay, so here you have our website. You can go there. It has our mission, all the information I stated. It has the history of the VPC, started in 2016 through partnership with Washington University, and it'll show you step by step how we progressed to where we are today. And I believe we do have some extra time. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so in case anyone didn't hear that, she was asking, are there mental health resources or places for counseling, therapy, enrichment? Yes. So not only VPC, but VPC is sponsored by the St. Louis Mental Health Board. So we sponsor fiscally and advocate for different resources. So there's early childhood programs there. We work with the city and county libraries. They open up their facilities to host a lot of different programs. Yeah, there's dozens of programs, and on our MHB website, stlmhb.org, you'll have all the list of the organizations that we partner with for those mental health resources and grief and any other support that a youth may need. All right, thank you.
Everyone, please put your hands together for Mr. Justin Mosley. Next, we're going to be watching a film together. We will watch Save a Child, Secure Your Gun, a documentary that powerfully illustrates the devastating effects of gun violence and the urgent need for responsible gun ownership.
Like best friends, we would hang out every day after school. We were playing around at first. We were just hanging out, playing with the dogs.
Then he was just kind of laughing.
Just having a good time.
My mom wasn't home because she was working.
He was looking for something.
I came out and said, hey, look at this.
He got the gun out, I took it.
Why did he want to get the gun?
I wanted to show it to them, that was all.
Say anything about whether the gun was real or not?
Yes, he told me it wasn't real. Didn't seem look real.
He said, let me do it, let me do
I'm
it.
guessing he was trying to figure out if it was actually real.
And he handed it to me.
He was just kind of laughing and pointing it.
Did you hear one?
He was like messing with the trigger and stuff.
We were standing right in front of him. He was getting into a car, but he didn't believe me.
Yes, I think so.
Where are they shot?
I've been told they've been shot in the shoulder.
Okay, are you with them?
I felt like the whole ground was shaking.
I didn't know what to do.
And what happened after you pulled the trigger?
I wouldn't have fired it if it wasn't real.
Are they in the house?
Yes, they're in the house.
Was it intentional? Sir, can you talk to me? Was
On
this
the 7th Street.
Can you tell me who's been shot? Who's been shot?
I heard a bang. I was really scared.
Right, the person inside the residence has been shot?
Put pressure on the wound.
It's my best friend.
He was saying, call 911, call 911.
Sir?
Clean it up and put pressure.
And from there, tragedy unfolded. Couple Four's Lindsay Cohen joins us live from 11th Street in Puyallup, where the shooting took place. Lindsay?
Yeah, Mary, tonight police still believe this was accidental and unintentional.
It was a little after 4 because school got out at about 3:30 and the police came to my job.
I just gotten home around 4 o'clock and my brother still isn't home yet.
A simple show and tell led to the gunfire.
It appears he didn't believe it was real and fired the shotgun through.
One of the guns was not locked up. It was behind our bed. I don't know why.
Do you know which one?
The shotgun.
Is that for safety, maybe?
Possibly from my husband's perspective, it was safe. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know why it wasn't locked up.
You didn't know if it was loaded or not?
No, I didn't know if it was loaded or not.
And they told me, do you have any children? I said, Jose and Eddie. And they said, well, we're here about Eddie. There's been an accident. Eddie was shot. I said, well, where is he? They said, well, he's at the hospital, but he didn't make it. And I just started screaming.
I received a phone call. I could hear my aunt screaming in the background. She was saying, they killed him, they killed him. I was like, who you were talking about? And she was like, Eddie. Who killed Eddie? And then the phone just dropped.
So my son came home and he sat me down. He said, Mom, something happened to Eddie Z. And I said, what do you mean? How does a child get shot by a friend from school? People just leave guns around for children to shoot children? Something's got to be done. This is happening too much.
We begin breaking news tonight out of Goldsboro. A 7-year-old airlifted to ECU Health Medical Center after being shot by an 8-year-old relative.
An Elkhart family is grieving tonight after their 15-year-old child was accidentally shot to death over the weekend.
16-year-old Shakori Smith died last month after police say a 15-year-old friend accidentally shot him.
A 2-year-old is dead after finding a gun.
This is now the third accidental shooting involving a child since Friday.
A 6-year-old student shot a teacher with a handgun.
Just this week, an Indiana toddler caught on a doorbell camera playing with a gun like it
Tyler
was a toy.
Ellis, you see here, is the second teen from the school lost to gun violence in the last month.
Something I never want to relive ever again. I get that phone call in my mind every single day.
Go home and look at your own kids in the eye and think, would I want that to happen to them? Because it could happen.
Their son Christian was shot in the chest while at a friend's house where a gun was not locked up.
In 2018, Kristen Song lost her 15-year-old son, Ethan.
Ethan Song was shot to death at the home of another teen boy. Police say no adult was present.
The ER doctor looked at me and said, Mrs. Song, your son is unrecognizable. He was shot in the head. And my fear is if you see him in that condition, that you will never return from the darkness.
It's no secret. Gun violence in the United States continues to grow.
Guns
are the #1 killer of children in the United States. More than car accidents, more than cancer. We can't just stand by. We can't let it happen any longer.
This is the corner where I dropped off my son in the morning for school the last time that I saw him. I wonder, did they walk on the street? Did they walk? Oh, my heart just starts racing. I can't stand the thought of it. I can't stand the thought of it. That's the house. Oh my God.
Keep your guns safe, keep your people safe. The new motto advocates are using to promote safe storage of firearms.
We want gun owners to store their firearms safely, locked and away from ammunition.
New technology makes securing guns easier than ever.
Pop open can be opened by PIN code, biometrics, and keys.
This is about kid safety. We want to keep kids safe. There's no reason a user should not keep his gun safe.
A Whitten, South Dakota family has an important message to parents after their 3-year-old son accidentally shot himself.
Lock up your guns. There's absolutely no reason to have a loaded gun within a kid's reach.
Children who are killed or injured by unsecured guns, those aren't accidental deaths. Accident implies that there was nothing the gun owner could have done.
I think most people agree that if you own a gun, it should be properly and securely stored.
I watched my little boy's life leave his body. If I had taken the extra step to put it in a lockbox or a safe or one of these $1.50 gun locks on my pistol, my son would still be here.
A new study says thousands of young lives could be saved if adults took proper care of their weapons. And there is a growing movement to lock up parents who don't lock up their guns.
Ethan's law says that if you own a gun and have children in the house, you've got to keep the guns and ammunition away from that child.
We need to start sending a very, very strong message that if you leave your guns around and children can gain access, there will be consequences.
State lawmakers want to require guns be locked up when they're not in use, arguing the law will save lives.
The majority of Americans do want something done on this issue.
This is Brian G., NRA, speaking in opposition to this bill. There are many other items around the house that cause injury, illness, or death to a child.
I mean, really, what's the difference, especially if cars are 35 times more likely to cause an accidental death?
Actually, in Washington state last year, more people were killed by guns than by cars.
I'm at work, just taking a break, walking. Had a difficult morning. I just really miss him.
This is a 20 gauge shotgun. It is a synthetic stock with Realtree AP camo.
That's the gun,
How's it
right?
going? It's the Daily Shooter here. Just wanted to come to you today with a review of the Mossberg 500 Bantam. This is a youth model.
A youth model.
Everywhere else and in all other areas of life, we choose to protect our kids, but not in this one area. And to me, it's all about money.
America's merchants of gun death are not concerned about child safety or adult safety or anything other than getting rich.
15-year-old boy shot and killed at a friend's house. It was just 4 days ago. Shadrach Hall Turner lost his life far too soon.
A 6-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy. 2 lives cut short in 1 month in Paulding County due to accidental shootings.
A 5-year-old shot and killed at her grandparents' home.
And NRA is in all these pockets of legislators, and that is disgusting.
You know, the greed of the gun lobbies and the manufacturers is obvious.
but the cowardice and the selfishness of the legislators. You'd like to get each one of them in a room, just one by one, and say, what's more important to you? If you could vote for some good gun safety laws, would you do that if it saved one kid? Or is your job and your money so important to you that you would say, screw the kid?
Yeah, I'll help you.
No.
No? Okay. There you go, you did it.
I did.
You know, I always think about all the things that, you know, I'm gonna miss. He was a hugger, kisser. Every night he would come to my bed. He's like, time to cuddle. Hi there. That's, I miss a lot. I miss that. All right, we'll see everybody at the gun show.
Nearly half of guns in this country are not locked away properly, and guns accidentally kill kids in the U.S. 10 times more often than any other developed country in the world.
It's real people that it's happening to, not just something you hear on the news.
Year after year, we see kids get killed, little kids get killed.
Hopefully this will get a good message across. I already know of people that now they lock up their guns when they never even thought about it before. Just such a small thing to do to save a life.
Kids are curious. I've been teaching for 25 years. I know the curiosity. And why would we ever blame our children for being who they are? It's our responsibility.
It was just unbelievable to me that my son is gone and no one is held accountable.
New information on that deadly school shooting outside of Detroit by a 15-year-old sophomore.
When you obtained the firearm, it was not kept in a locked container or a safe. Yes, it was not locked.
You have an active shooter, several people down. He's actually shooting. He's in the art room. We got shots fired right now, guys.
Pogorchis came to school this morning armed with his father's shotgun and .38 revolver.
School shooters get their weapons from home more often than you might think.
76% of the time, a firearm used in a mass shooting was obtained either from a student's home or a relative or a friend's home. In nearly half of those school shootings, the gun used was not secured or stored by its owner.
I've got in this room actually a 20-gauge single-shot shotgun right here. And I have them sitting here in the room out, exposed. Why? So I can go do what I need to do. Kill things, because that's what guns are for. And you're saying if I leave my 20 gauge or 22 sitting out and I have a 12-year-old son and I don't have that locked up, that is straight up bullshit.
The NRA thinks this is asking too much of gun owners. New safes open at the speed of a smartphone.
It is our job to protect our children from themselves.
Following Ethan's death in 2018, the Song family successfully lobbied for a Connecticut state law strengthening requirements around safe storage of firearms in homes.
Voters passed an extensive gun reform initiative last night.
Washington state approved one of the toughest gun safety laws in the nation.
A gun owner can be criminally responsible if their gun gets into the wrong hands and a crime is committed with it.
The state's first firearm safe storage law makes it a crime if gun owners do not secure loaded weapons in the presence of children under the age of 16.
You may have heard me refer to this as Christian's Law. He died at the age of 15 years old at a sleepover.
Public Safety Committee Chair Kevin Payne of Peoria will not give the bill a hearing.
There are teenagers, there are people with mental illness who could end up in houses where guns aren't stored properly. Can you see that perspective, and what would you say?
If you have a situation like that, deal with it.
Last year has been a nightmare for my family and me as we had to live through this overwhelming loss due to gun violence.
Today, Representative Pamela Herndon announced they will be trying to pass the Benny Hargrove Gun Safety Act again in the next legislative session.
Based on the information and evidence I have received,
Today I'm announcing charges against the shooter's parents.
Ethan Crumbley's parents are each charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Prosecutors say gross negligence makes them partially responsible for their son's 2021 rampage.
16-year-old Jalen Wiley was shot and killed at Great Mills High School in St. Mary's County in 2018. The 17-year-old student who killed her used his father's gun. Almost 5 years to the day of her death, the Maryland Senate passed the bill bearing her name.
New at noon, a new push to get Ethan's law passed on the federal level.
I promised that I would fight for every child that is confronting gun violence.
We need to get it done because of an epidemic of children getting their hands on weapons.
The tragedies are preventable. That's why it's critical to pass Ethan's law.
Congress is complicit in that bloodshed if it fails.
Regardless of where you stand on the gun issue, I think we can all agree that guns should be stored safely and out of the reach of kids.
We need leaders who have the courage to act at state houses and in Washington, D.C. in the United States Congress.
Mothers are losing children. And it's got to be stopped somehow.
It shouldn't be that difficult of a decision to make to protect our children when it comes to guns.
It is my hope that it's speaking out today motivates just one person to secure their gun. My son, Eddie Z. Holmes' life would not have been taken in vain.
We want to see when Jessica comes on.
See if the microphone will work this time or not. Okay. So we're going to take a moment for a candlelight moment of silence and reflection. We can now take a moment to honor those that we have lost due to gun violence. We ask that each of you take a candle, go over there on the table if you would like to grab one, hold it in memory of someone taken by gun violence, and let us reflect together silently on how we can honor them with action. Let us stand together in solidarity and silence for this moment of reflection. They say put it on, can't get ventilated. Thank you all so much for taking this moment of silence and reflection. We are now going to take a quick break. Please take this time to connect, to reflect, and to prepare for the second half of our program. We will resume at noon with a poetry reading from one of our featured readers. Thank you so much.
We have lunch for you. It'll be out, or is it ready? Is it set up for lunch? We'll be setting up lunch. Please join us. We ask that you do sign the Valentines to the Black Lives Lost by police violence. We also ask that you sign the petitions, especially if you live in Missouri. It's out in the hall where lunch will be. It'll be set up in just a few minutes. We have to use our voices. Please include your address so that they can be sent to the proper people. We can't stop using our voices. It does look bleak right now, of course. The motion toward more violence instead of less is certainly there. But if we don't stand up, hope goes away. So thank you all, and we're going to set up your lunch. Chat among yourselves.
I also wanted to note, feel free to wander. I also wanted to note that we have in memoriam cards, if there are people you want to recognize at the Vigil table. There are also letter writing stations in Valentines. I hope you write a letter or a Valentine, because I'm going to DC next week and I will take your letters, your Valentines, whatever you want me to take. I'm going to go to Josh Hawley's office, Eric Schmidt's office, and whoever's office you want us to go to in DC, I will make that trek for you. So anyway, and there's the chapel if you want to take time to reflect. Thank you very much.
I mean, we are affected. Yeah. I have all this. So it's just like, I don't know. Some kids do, right? That energy is so much energy, right? Imagine when we get married, especially you have dogs, no confidence. Sounds absurd to say, but these companies don't need to produce anymore. These things we have to my brother trip to Israel. So, although it can be sexual, like I live in upstate New York, so 3.5 hours, and I've lived up in big Valentines. You know, my grandmother was a hunter, so I remember as a kid, my brother and I going to my grandma's house. We went into the closet where we hid the rifles where we wanted to see them. You know, like we didn't play with them. We knew they were kind of awful, whatever, but still like that kid curiosity, like, right? But I have the nurse practice, right? Like, don't point a gun, right? Like, and some of those people are really steadfast about, like, there's certain things you just don't do. Say the one gentleman, right? So it's like it's bullshit. Those people, I don't know what to say. They just want to. Like you see, okay, I have a 12-year-old kid, I have a 15-year-old kid, I have a 16-year-old kid that knows that right, Mr. Grandma, right, and gave you the proper education. Yeah. So many people telling you, although you know better, like kids are still curious, right? So that's where it's like saying, although I know that my child knows better, you still have to take extra precaution. Yeah. Finding something that's no different from although I know it. Him saying that this is like him not being so weird, the process, the way, right? Not wanting to be responsible, not that feeling infringed on. Yes. Like, I don't care what my dog, right? And not really construction, I have this. Not any what I also. Almost looks for all those different well, right, especially I want to hold everything. Right. They want to do everything you do
Right, when there's so many things. I mean, gun violence is almost like an uncertainty. You know, we have to deal with something like this. I think she was in school, she would have to do drills for like words and things like that. When I was a little kid, I drove up to elementary school, you know, like the hallway. Yeah. And I remember some of those drills because I was like, I didn't understand really what was going on. But I wasn't traumatized by those drills, I will tell you. You take the drills, constant drills in school today. Traumatized.
On top of them, like this community right here, although we were, if you look up here, you know, who began to be like abandoned, right? But this community, like for kids, like we got school right down the street. Different aspects of somebody chasing.
Yeah, like even the interactions amongst themselves, because that's what kids do. And it's the phones, it's worse.
So, you know, kids want to be having no home, having to be home. Sorry, my kids. Like these are the type of things validated here in this type of community. I heard stories where certain municipalities going
right. I think that's, I mean, I'm a teacher, I taught in middle school in New York City. It's intense, right? I mean, the kids, like, you know, sometimes the kids, like, when I fell in love with teaching, I didn't plan on it, but the kids, sometimes, you know, the kids know what's going on. You know, and like,
A little bit. Yes. No, you're fine. Sorry. It's a room last year. Actually, yeah.
Before I fell in love with that, and this stuff and that's what I think. I like no regrets, but oh yeah. It's very simple.
I mean, I'm assuming they know. Oh, yeah.
And now we'll bring on. Being met on the internet. So you may remember me, my problem is I remember everything about your story. But you know, people say, I never forget a face. Brain doesn't. Well, I feel bad that I never have a conversation. Remember who you are, but. No trailer, no preview.
So this is how. He's married the wife of Sludge. They have his wife is they have a Turkish wife. Yeah. Like, I'm not scared. I know, but extra place where they can walk around and drive.
Oh, that's just
Okay.
Oh. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that you're enjoying the quick bite to eat. Thank you for joining us today at the Deaconess Center at the Valentine's Day Vigil against gun violence. Next up to the stage, we're going to have a poetry reading with our featured reader. Poetry has the power to express our deepest grief, our greatest resilience, and our strongest hope. Please welcome our featured poet, Jessica Femiani, as she shares her powerful reflections.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I want to thank the entire Peace Economy Project Board of Directors for bringing me here. I especially want to thank Kat for her vision for this day. So I'm going to read a poem. It's called The American Gun. I wrote most of this poem before the pandemic, I would say. There was a time where I felt every morning my radio alarm was giving me an update of the multiple shootings that happened the day before. And it had a influence on me. I should mention also that I am a teacher and I taught in New York City for 8 years. So some of the scenes in this poem are placed there. The American Gun. One. My great-grandfather was born a serf on land barren. His wife, my great-grandmother, she said the land was cursed. The riches of the waters reserved for the sons of families noble. I know the story about a boy, Antonio, my grandfather. One day he reached high above a wood-burning stove. The muscles of his left arm stretched long and lean. Just as his fingertips grazed the shells of hard-boiled eggs stowed high, his right elbow dipped, submerged. The skin of my grandfather's elbow showed a pale pink, a gloss chap from which not a single hair grew. Two. My grandfather was a plumber, a foreman, a Democrat, a proud union man. Built like a bull, he hauled cast iron tubs up flights of stairs. When my mother divides his wares, we each receive a mini leather-bound booklet, pages full of rust-red stamps, stamped dues paid, in rows gathered in groups of 4. My mother, she remembers the NRA leaflets would arrive in the mail each month. Pages devoted to the pursuit, the chase that is sport. The hunter pumps the rifle, pumps bullets to the chamber, shoots the deer fair game. My grandmother, she cooked it all, venison to squirrel stew. I can still hear my grandfather as he licks his lips, sucks the bones dry. Three. I stand on the platform at 103rd Street in Corona Plaza, and I want the school day gone. I fall in love with ugly and old, the textured peel of old bricks gessoed white, the fate of ads, factories, services, all past due. Here on this platform, the billboards boast scenes of the summer's blockbuster hopefuls, all woven in threads of iron and steel. I think of this amendment, penned to arm pioneers in the wilderness, militiamen. They'd band together on foot. And I think about the middle school boys I teach. the crumpled papers I find in the garbage shoved in the back of their desks. The finest jet black inked line drawings, drawn as delicate and elegant as lace. Hatched lines ennoble a masculine zeal for a mysterious skin. Gunmetal cold, black, blue. Four. On the drive to Wegmans, I groove to Dar Williams. Southern California wants to be Western New York. At the red, my eyes land on the truck just ahead. The dark tint of its back window contrasts the white stenciled silhouette of a semi-automatic. Below, in clean white cursive, reads, "Come and get it." A slight chill curls the warm autumn air. I follow the truck as it parks. Watch the driver, this tall man with his legs long, his stride strong. Watch as he shops, bags apples, picks out a few pears. Watch as he glances at the list in his back pocket. I can't help but notice the complete calm of his reserve, the thin of his lips without the subtlety of a curve, just dense, reddish golden hair crowding his mouth. Five. On the sunniest of December afternoons in Corona, Queens, I'm walking towards the 7 train on National Street. Like always, I walk past a Buddhist temple, and it is likely a fat stub of incense is burning pine in a well of sand. I can't remember details like that now. Kind of how I can't remember if all the shoes were laid outside of the mosque that I passed next. The mosque, I believe, is the same mosque I once read Malcolm X founded. Past a commercial laundry, a bodega, the Jehovah's Witnesses Hall, all the places I know, the taquerias, the Colombian bakery where I buy homemade hot sauce. On this 14th of December, I hardly take notice. I'm sweating too much. Having thrown my jacket over my shoulder, on the phone with my mother, we're talking, trying to piece together what happened. I can still hear the high-pitched squawking of the crows high in the treetops as my mother tells me, this young man's surname is a beautiful Italian name, like a famous opera singer my grandmother once loved. This young man, my mother tells me, he shot 18 first graders, execution style. Sky blue walls, glazed pomegranate red, and molasses smears. The next day, I do the unthinkable, try to talk the untalkable to the stares of blank that belong to the children who have been my students the last 2.5 years. I can see their faces, complexions of rich cocoa butters, golden honey, jet streams of thick black hair, their dark brown eyes searching. They don't talk today during the announcements, even as our principal announces all that we already know. A moment of silence is had, and he says, the entire staff of IS 61 and all of its students will be keeping the students and teachers of Sandy Hook in our hearts and our prayers. But he pauses as he hesitates. We must all remain vigilant. Do not open any doors for anyone under any circumstance. Ramon asks me, what if we clean out the storage closet in the back? Make it into a fort, a hideout for our class. Stock it with phone chargers, bottles of water, snacks. The voice on the intercom drills soft lockdown, hard lockdown. Those already locked classroom doors standing open at the ready. Slam them shut, hit the lights, cram kids into coat closets, under desks, away from the windows, count rosters. That child crying out in the hall, leave that child behind. I think that had to be some of the most heart-wrenching training that we had for these drills, where the principal told us we were not to open the door once it was locked. Closed, rather. 6. The year I graduated high school, when fire drills were nothing more than a break from class, the world birthed a boy given the middle name of Storm. As a child, he was said to stand apart, staring for hours at the flat of bedroom walls. Happy he was to talk casual of his dreams to kill. Swayed by Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church's easy entrance, its evening Bible study underway, this young man found Black parishioners, young and old, sitting round with eyes closed, hands folded in prayer. The lead preacher, a young senator my age, married with 2 baby girls, pulls out a chair in welcome, an invitation for this young man to close his eyes, fold his hands in prayer. The warmth, the kindness of the parishioners almost convinced this young man to abort. This young man believed Black men were taking over the country, that Black men were raping white women, not having ever learned that Black men have never made rape a practice, as our founding fathers did. The rape of Black enslaved women. This young man's moves were fortified in cyberspace. He chose 88 bullets, 88 hollow point bullets designed to expand catastrophically, exponentially within the body's tissues. Seven. In the next time of too many, the shooter clanged bells, blew whistles, honked all the horns, squashed the squeaky wheel. This young man chose St. Valentine's as the day of all days to pump lead at school. Stoneman Douglas has been left 17 down. They show what happens when kids are taught smart, how the young can see straight. They stand up, they call foul, they keep the call to foul on a world of men consumed by pockets thick. These men old, they don't think to heed the ways of a woman wise. Maybe they hadn't heard of New Zealand. After 2 mosques in Christchurch are gunned down, 51 Muslims slaughtered mid-prayer, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, she wraps her arms around the people, leads a parliament divided to negotiate, then legislate a ban on the country's military-style weapons, all assault rifles, its semi-automatic rifles, the high-capacity magazines, all banned. Eight. This time, the shooter posts a manifesto of hate directed at our brethren, Black and brown. Before driving 48 hours cross-state, ramming his fearless heart of hate amidst the aisles of a Walmart in El Paso. For the love of God, wasn't Texas stolen from Mexico anywho? This time of next, the shooter brings vengeance underground, rich red splatters off subway tile in South Brooklyn. My sister marks herself safe. This time, every time of too many young white men rage. We cannot comprehend the slaughter. We cannot make meaning of this magnitude. We do what people do. We enact life's doing. the cooking, the cleaning, the loving, the working, the schooling, the supermarket, a shopping mall, an elementary school, a movie theater, the mall again, another mall, a nightclub, a college dormitory, high schools, grade schools, this parade, that concert, this state, that state, every state, 3 shootings in the same state, the same week, 10 dead, 12 dead, 25. We want to put our baby to sleep. 5 dead. The man said, if he'd known, he wouldn't have sold him the gun. Nine. What is to be said if men salaried with guns, gear, and protections massive, if they too are afraid? If they stand outside Robb Elementary, fumbling over the chain of command while the shooter shoots the babies inside? The parents in Uvalde had no bodies to claim. A cotton swab to the cheek identifies their remains. I spend most of my time in my apartment these days. If I decide to run out for a carton of milk, I worry this could be a bad time. Might this be the same time another young man in America decides to make his descent? If this is my adult mind, I can't begin to imagine the dreams of the children asleep in their beds. Bedtime prayers become urgent pleas. Please, God, please don't let me be killed at school. Please watch over me when I'm in church, playing at Mikey's house, at the Garlic Festival, in the mosque, the synagogue. Dreams that haunt, disrupt the sleep. Baritone yells cut the night. 10. I have spent precious time worrying how I might bring this poem to a close. Even more worrying, this helplessness will persist. We've been in it for so long, walking backwards. What is a country that cannot protect its people, its children? What then is the future? How is this freedom, America? For the longest, I've not known where to look. But my eyes now fall on the shoulders of the youth. The young people drilling since they were born. Having watched classmates and friends and teachers dying in pools of blood in classrooms and cafeterias across this land. The young adults, they've got it. They've got verve. In the high heat of summer, they took to the streets in hordes. their legs traversing the nation, chanting beneath masks, masks masking breath, chanting Black Life Matters. With voices hoarse and throats sore, chanting no justice, no peace, chanting still into the streets, chanting and marching for this life, our lives, chanting for the living and breathing, a revolution of being. Thank you so much.
Just want to mention that Jessica did bring copies of her book and they're available. Yeah.
Everyone, please put your hands together one more time for Jessica Femiani. Next up, we will welcome Minister James Bolden of Unsung Angels, who is graciously going to share his words of faith and healing with us.
Good evening. Good afternoon, everyone. How everyone doing today? You blessed? I think everybody listening today been day. I come before you to thank the Peace Project and everyone that's here today. Give you a small story, a backdrop. Like they said, my name is James Bolden Sr. Yes, I am a minister, but I stand before you today as a father. This year coming up, 10 years, it'll be 10 years that my daughter, Jamila Bolden, was taken from my family. 10 years of ups and downs, 10 years of pain, 10 years of what am I gonna do? So within that 10 years, I was given a revelation. And the revelation that I was given was to start Unsung Angels. Unsung Angels is a youth organization that brings a glimmer of hope, peace, and solidarity to the youth in the city of St. Louis. We're actually going to host our first cohort this year in March. We also are launching our core program March 1st. So with that being said, I'd like to share that I was having a conversation with two of the visitors here today. And we was talking about, a father. Being a father of 8, how could you really do the things that you do when you didn't have a child taken from you and your world just stripped upside down? Well, one thing I can tell you through the process was my faith. I stood on my faith. And with that being said, when you look at what's going on today, we're dealing with a systematic problem. We have individuals that don't want to be accountable for the things that's going on with our youth today. We have problems going on in the home where there is 43 to 50% of kids losing their lives to inflicted wounds that come from not having the guns or whatever choice or weapon safety and security. So we have youth shooting one another. We also have at least 75% of the youth getting their hands on assault weapons that we don't even know where they're getting them from. And with that being said, Unsung Angels come with the core program to try to diversitize the fact that we want to bring the gun violence down by 80%. A lot of people say it's not possible, but with each and every one of y'all here today, it can be possible. All we have to do, not just put programs together, but give the kids something to do, give them a little sense of hope. Because at the end of the day, when you look at all the statistics, it's not just an urban neighborhood. It's not a suburban neighborhood. It's an American situation. And we're losing too many kids by their own hand and by senseless acts. And I just want to end with this. A loved one is not an easy thing to just let go. And if we don't fight today, when are we going to fight?
Everyone, please give it up one more time for Minister James Bolin of Unsung Angels. That's Unsung Angels. Please check that out. And next up to the stage, as we spoke about before, gun violence is personal and it impacts real families, real children, and real futures. Back to the stage, we'd like to welcome Katrina Canyon, Executive Director of Peace Economy Project. She's going to share her story today in the hopes that it will inspire action, accountability, and change. Everyone, please welcome her to the stage.
I have been going back and forth on what to say to you today about my life and my personal story as far as how gun violence has affected me and the ones I care about. And I think the best way to do that, I thought originally the best way to do that was through poetry, and that's why I shared a couple poems earlier today. But I am just going to just lay out bits of my life and hope that you can find some inspiration or reason or means in my experiences. When I was about 8 years old, I should start with my father was from Texas. He was a very, very proud Texan, and we saw the video just now where the man had his gun next to his bed and said, "That's where my gun is, and I'm going." And darn it to everyone. He didn't say darn it, but that's what I'm going to say. Darn it to everyone who thinks I shouldn't have my gun next to my bed. And my dad, being a proud Texan, that's where he kept his shotgun, right next to his bed. And he was going to die with his gun in his cold, dead hands. Because you don't mess with Texas. You know, Texans have a lot of, of sayings, and that's one of them. And so he was a very proud gunman. He had guns. We all had guns. I got my first gun when I was 8 years old. It was a .22. And when he gave it to me, he said, "When you aim it at somebody, make sure you shoot to kill." And which meant that I wasn't allowed to shoot it unless I was shooting to kill somebody. And he taught me how to put the bullets in it, how to load it, unload it. And one of my favorite things to do as an 8-year-old was to put the bullets in and out of it. And even though I wasn't supposed to pull the trigger unless I was aiming it at someone, I would love to just sit there and pull the trigger on the thing. And I honestly don't know how I didn't end up shooting myself as an 8-year-old with this gun. Just playing with it, walking around with it, carrying it on me. Or I don't know how I didn't end up getting shot by someone who saw me running around playing with my gun. But I'm here and I'm happy to be here because that should not be a child's life. And I'm looking out into this audience and I'm hoping that there isn't someone who's listening now who freely allows their children to play with guns. It's just not a safe way for a child to be. You know, there are plenty other things that children can play with. And I didn't have much, but I didn't need a gun. You know, of all the things I would have liked as a child, like maybe a doll, that would have been nice. I didn't have those things. I had a gun. So moving on in life, when I was about 12 years old, my brothers and I were living I grew up in LA, but we were living outside of LA at this point, and we were just going down going through a field, and we hear like bullets whizzing past us. And we couldn't tell where they were coming from, but someone was shooting somewhere, and we had to run. And this was something that we had to be concerned about growing up, is that there were bullets just flying randomly. That's how I lost one of my best friends, Rochelle, loaned her a pair of my jeans. And she was walking to the store, going to get candy or something like that with another one of our friends, and she just dropped to the ground. Someone was shooting there. They don't know if they were shooting at the propane truck or what, but a bullet hit the propane truck, ricocheted off the propane truck, got Rochelle right here. And she dropped straight to the ground. Nobody understood what happened to her until it was too late. Yeah, and that was the reality of our lives. Then when I was 16, my father was a very abusive person. And as I said, he had the shotgun right there next to the bed. We all knew how to use it. Tons of target practice, tons of guns we had. And he would beat my mother on a regular basis. And I write a lot about this in my poetry. But there was one day where he was beating my mom, and I said to myself, I'd had enough. Not only of the beatings, but he was abusing me as well, sexually and physically, and I just said, I had enough. So I go and I get the shotgun, and he's out on the front lawn. He's beating my mom on the front lawn with a water hose, and take the gun and point it right at him. And I said, I'm done.
I'm done. And the thing was as I was pointing it, I remembered what he said, that if I point a gun at somebody, I have to pull the trigger. That was the rule, even if I'm pointing it at him. And once you get in that situation, you know, your 16-year-old mind you're clocked in. You may want to take it back, but because you don't have that judgment to take it back, you're stuck. You feel like you have to go through with it. And that's how I felt. I felt like I have to go through with this now, because if I don't, he's going to come back and get me. And so I'm there pointing, and my mother is begging me. My father's just stopped. He's not saying a word. He's just looking at me. And my mother comes up and she's begging me, saying, Katrina, please don't do this. Please put the gun down. And she says, I know that he's hurt you, but this isn't the way to stop him. And she was just begging and begging and begging. So then I just dropped the gun and I just ran. And I don't know if the neighbors somehow had seen it or what, but one of the neighbors was chasing me in their car, begging me to get in the car. But my mother also chased me in her car, and I got in the car with her, and she told me that that I didn't have to feel that hopelessness that I was feeling. But that could have gone completely the other way. If my mother wasn't there begging me not to do it, I'm pretty sure I would have pulled the trigger, and I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be the executive director of Peace Economy Project, that's for sure. And I wouldn't be able to talk to people like you today. And I have this poem called Everyday Elegy. There is a poem I've been trying to write for years, but I don't see poetry in it. I cannot find poetry in my mother trying to run, but being slowed down by polio as my father beat her. I do not see poetry when I think about how I grabbed the gun that was always next to the bed, fully loaded. I do not see poetry when I yelled at him. I do not see poetry when my mother begs me not to shoot. I do not hear a rhyme as the time passes slowly, as I try to decide whether or not to end him. Where is the poetry in that? And the screams, and the cries, and the begging? Where is the poetry in my own cracked voice when I say I am tired of him and what he does to her and what he does to me? There is no poetry in the tumbleweeds that roll in fear, loosening their thorns in the dust. It was probably a hot day that day. It seemed like it usually was. I was on fire that day, and I could not feel the sizzle on my skin. So how could I feel the poetry? Fortunately, I don't need to see the poetry. I just have to put down the gun. And that's, how, thank you, Jessica. And I do a lot of this because of children, and I don't own a gun now,
but I do remember the joy, and I understand people and their love of guns, and because I used to have them. I used to have it. And probably if you put a gun in my hand right now, I could show you some pretty decent skills, but it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. It is the #1 killer of children in America. Just take that in. Of all, I think about when I was a kid, they would say, look both, look to the left, look to the right. There was this whole campaign on crossing the street that we had to take to protect us as children. We had campaigns on drinking and driving. We have campaigns on all of these different things. But God forbid we say something about protecting children from guns. The #1 killer in America, and we can't say anything about it. And that is a shame. And I'm not even done telling you how guns have affected my life. I'm only halfway through. And I'm telling you, I do not know why I'm here today. My father, for punishment, that was his thing. He'd take out his gun and shoot at us. Again, sitting in the closet because my dad is mad. He's shooting at my brother all through the house, got holes everywhere because he's taking pot shots. One day, my father had gotten a TV from someone. I don't know if the TV was a loan, if the TV was for something or another, because he dealt drugs, but we had a TV. And one day the guy came and he wanted his TV back. My mother said, because she's not going to let him in. My father tells my mother not to do something, she's not going to do it. So the guy said, I want my TV back. She said, sorry. Floyd said, we can't let you in. Guy pulls out a gun. I have 5 brothers. We're all getting shot at by this man bringing a gun over a TV. I have an autistic brother, nonverbal, not high functioning. One day we're all sitting watching TV and we hear my dad's gun go off in the bedroom and my brother screams because he doesn't understand what just happened. Because he keeps the gun loaded and cocked as well. My brother Mo, nonverbal, fires the gun. Fortunately, he's okay. Everybody's okay, and Mo's running around screaming, but he's okay. And people think that their children know not to do these things. People think that it's not going to be their child. But what happens to your life when it is? What happens when it is? What happens, and there was something, I didn't even think about, like watching this movie. You send your kids to your friends' houses. My kids are grown, never once did it occur to me to think about whether or not the friend that I'm sending my child to, what's their gun status? Parents need to now start asking, what is your situation when it comes to guns? Do you have a gun in your house? That is a question that we should ask. So, yeah, and I think I will close it because I can continue on for a while with the guns that have affected my life. But I had this friend when I was working in law offices in LA, and her name was Lori Esteen. And we were all young. I was in my 20s, and we were all in our 20s. And we were having a good time in that era, in the 90s. My husband is not looking at me, he's looking at his phone, but she wanted to become a rapper, and she had this friend, and she started this rap group called Sweet and Low because her name was Lori, called her Low. And she was a file clerk at the law office. And when she got her contract and her record came out and she started to become famous, she started inviting me to places. And, you know, there's my husband over there. You see him. I love him. Whitest man in America over there, right? So when Lori's album came out, she invited us to her release party. She invited me to the release party, and I show up first, and it's nothing but Black people there in the 90s. And then my husband comes with juggling clubs, walks in with juggling clubs, and I'm like, you couldn't leave the juggling clubs in the house. He's already going to be the only white man there, but he's gonna show up with juggling clubs. And a guy asked him, "Are those juggling clubs?" My husband says, "Why? Yes, they are." And he starts juggling for the guy. And do you remember who the guy was, Jeff? Tupac. So my husband's juggling for Tupac. Didn't realize it. So we all know what happened with that. So I won't get into that. But Lori, my friend Diane was roommates with Lori, and Lori loved her weed quite a bit. And her boyfriend dealt it, which was very, very illegal in LA at the time. And my friend Diane was roommates with her, and one day police came and raided their house. And I said to Diane, I'm like, Diane, you need to get out of there now. And Diane moved out. And Lori, a week later, was found bound and shot. It has to be one of the hardest of all the friends I lost. That one is the one that really did it in for me. Lori it just wasn't fair. It wasn't fair because she had worked so hard, and we grew up in South Central, and she was there, she had made it, and someone decided to just go in one day and shoot her, and they still to this day don't know who it was. And that's my story, and those are my reflections on gun violence and why I do what I do. And mostly it's for the children. I want children in this world to feel safe. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Minister Bolden, Justin Mosley, Abby, Marianne, Jessica, Susan. I don't know your name, but thank you to Danny, Taylor. Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. And I'm going to turn it back over to Susan, who is going to talk about what's next.
Thank you.
I've known Kat for a long time. I remember the first time I met her was actually at a poetry reading, and she got up there and just completely rocked the microphone with barely even trying. And I was like, who is that? And then one day she asked me to do a show with her. So we used to do a gender violence awareness show called Women for Peace. So she's been doing so much good in our community and many others. So can we just give her a round of applause? And a round of applause for all the great people at Peace Economy Project and Deaconess Foundation. So we're going to have a moment where we're going to have some community sharing if anyone wants to come up, and then we're going to talk about next steps. Now to start that community sharing, I'm going to share something with you real quick, and then we will move on. Okay, so these are going to be really short. This is just 2 short pieces. This is called 17. 17 is my new lucky number. You see, it was on the 17th day that God saw me in my need, saved my life, lifted me up on high, and carried me away in his arms without a word. I knew from that day on that I was his. 17, a number I hated for so very long, a day of pain and death. So often I wept, swept away on an ocean of tears. I was drowning, but God saw my light. He saved my life, restored my sight, and now I'm safe and warm, right where I always belonged. 17 is now my favorite number, a day for celebration and renewal, a birthday of sorts, the day that I was reborn in the house of the Lord, the day he saw my heart and knew that I was more than good enough. 17. I think most of all what I see in the world today is that even when people are on the same side, the world we live in is so stressed out that we're losing our connections, our ability to communicate, our ability to heal. This is called peace on earth. There is no need to look any further. He is the peace that we have been seeking, all the joy of believing, the grace of giving and receiving. He is the love of our lives. There is no need to keep searching, no need to keep grieving, no reason to keep hurting. He is the way and the light. He is reason and rhyme. He is the one thing that makes sense in this life. There is no need to give up now. Let him show you how. Let him guide your heart. You can never care too much with just one touch. He will change your world forever. There is no reason to be alone. He has always been your home. His devotion is the greatest thing we could ever know. His love is a balm to the soul. He will make everything better. There is no need to look any further. He is the peace that we have been seeking, all the joy of believing, the grace of giving and receiving. He is the love of our lives. Is there anyone that would like to come up and share anything for the open mic? Anybody would like to come up now? Please come up, tell your story, your poems, your songs, Anything you'd like to share? Now is your chance. Okay. And for our next portion, our call to action, next steps. We've heard the pain and felt the loss, and now we must act. Here's how you can get involved today and beyond. Advocacy. Send Valentines to legislators. Demand stronger gun laws. Our kids, our country, our people deserve better. Community engagement. Please support your local violence prevention programs. Click on that link, call that number, check into it. Education and awareness. Share resources with others and keep the conversation going, because the change does start with us. Let's take the chance to turn our grief into real action. We are so deeply grateful for every one of you for coming today, for standing in solidarity with us, and for being part of the fight for a safer world. Thank you to all the speakers, performers, volunteers, and our partners, including the Deaconess Foundation. Lastly, thank you to our sponsor, the Gemmer Foundation. Our work does not end today. Let us continue this movement together. Before you leave, please visit the resource tables to learn more how about you can stay involved, how you can connect with local organizations, and how you can take action within your own community. Thank you all so much for being here today. Together, we honor. Together, we heal. Together, we will fight for a future free from gun violence. Thank you.
If you don't have your information, please fill out cards so that we can add to our mailing list. Please do add your names to the petitions. Please do fill out the Valentine's cards for lives lost. And please stay safe. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you.
You went a little too fast.
Oh, I'm
Susan.
sorry.
And I wonder if other people might have something more to say. I just had a couple of tiny bits. I worked here in St. Louis for.
Who are you?
I'm Mary Ann McGivern, and I worked here for 50 years. There we go. And but now I'm living in Kentucky, have been for 2 years, and the issues and the problems are different. So there was a New York Times piece a couple of weeks ago about how juvenile crime is down 75%. It's a wonderful thing. And one of the guesses about why is that there are all these small nonprofits, all these efforts that we have in our neighborhoods, like Unsung Angels, like Women in Charge, like some of the shelters that we've had for women and children, like the after-school programs that have shown up, Midnight Basketball. In my little area of Kentucky, my county has 20,000 people, and it's one of 4 counties that has a prosecutor. She has 16 cases pending that are death penalty cases, and 12 of them are, 2 women and 10 men who are 21, 22, 18, all under 25. And she said, there's no programs for young people in our counties. This is rural. There's nothing to help them. And so these are different worlds that we live in, and I'm just keenly aware of that today. That's all that trying to reach across, but I'm very grateful for the groups like Unsung Angels, and it really does fill me with some hope. Related to that, I'm part of another an against gun violence group that is trying to link it to immigration. And there is a bill in front of Congress. It was just introduced by in both the House and the Senate, that is a Stop Arms Trafficking to Mexico bill. Whatever the name of it is, you can look it up in Google and that it will take you there. But what's his name? The Illinois congressman is one of the, Senator Durbin is one of the sponsors. But what it's saying is that that the migrants driven to the United States are being driven in great part by the guns that we are exporting to Mexico and Guatemala and the rest of the South. So, so that too is something to write your congressperson about and say, you know, stop the gun trafficking. This is not just in St. Louis, this is global. So now I'm sort of hoping maybe there's anybody else who might like to say so. You went too quickly, Susan. But maybe there isn't. Here we go. Right, I know that
no, I was talking to James, Minister James Bolin before. We were having a conversation with Abby, and I had just mentioned that a lot of gun violence is accidental, and the guns not being secure. We watched a video on that, and us as parents and grandparents, we need to set firm boundaries with our children, our grandchildren, the kids that they play with, their parents, the parents of the kids that our kids are friends with. Okay, like basically anytime your child or your grandchild goes into another home, you need to be aware, A, do they have guns? B, are those guns properly secured? And I hate to say this, but properly secured is highly subjective. And some people think, oh, well, it's up on the top shelf in my closet. Yeah, it's not going to get that. And they're going to say, yeah, it's properly secured. And you're like, no, that is not properly secured. Kids are curious. They will go and find things, and they will get into trouble, right? So I had to have this conversation with my father-in-law, very, conservative guy, lots of guns, very, wants to make sure that he has very, very fast access to guns in case a burglar ever came into his house. How many burglars have ever come into his house? 0. Has he known anyone who's ever, the statistics here are just not, anyway. The point is, he wanted to have that quick access, and I had to basically say, your grandkids are not going to come to your house unless you secure your guns. And that's it. There's not any negotiating with this. And it was difficult. He did not like it at first, and he fought back. But those are the boundaries that we have. But these are the uncomfortable conversations that we need to have sometimes, because of the fact that guns are so incredibly ubiquitous in the United States to an absurd degree. There are just more guns than people. And so that is the world we live in. And I think if we all can influence people, our grandkids, our kids, whatever, to have these kinds of boundaries and have these conversations, that is an impact right there in our communities. And, I just kind of wanted to bring that up. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all of you for sharing your stories. We know that this is difficult. Would you like to come up, please? Please, definitely.
My name is Virginia Drury. Marianne reminded me today that when the St. Louis Economic Conversion Project started,
1977.
There you go. I was one of the first people working on it. I had forgotten. They've gone a long ways without me. But I just wanted to mention The Atlantic very recently has an article called "Are We Thinking About Gun Violence All Wrong?" And they don't provide a little précis, so I'm going to do it's also a podcast. So I recommend you go to it. But the idea is basically just laws don't do it. It's the personal presence of these anti-violence programs and abuse programs and such that really makes the difference. So I recommend it highly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Every resource counts, every story counts. Does anyone else have anything they would like to share? Okay. Thank you all so much for taking time. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, please come up. Yeah. I just want to say thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today.
Thanks. I thought I'd close you out unless there's someone else. So I've been thinking about how I ended up here today and the gun violence thing. And I know a lot of people feel like, how do I do this? Or I don't have the capacity, or I don't have the experience. Don't let that stop you. When I first started doing things like this, I was a young mom living in Los Angeles, and one person said, I didn't know that you had these capabilities. I just thought you were Asia's mom. And that's who I was for the longest time. I was Asia's mom, Julian's mom, Jeff's wife. I was there, supporting with cupcakes and cookies and all of these other things. And then all of a sudden people said, wait, she's a poet? And then someone said, well, you need to be our poet laureate. And from there, I just started doing things. Like one day I said, I'm going to start a poetry festival. I had no idea how to do that thing. I just decided to do it. And I went to the city and said, hey, I want to do this. And they just said, okay. They didn't ask me for any qualifications whatsoever. They just got on board and supported me. And it's surprising. People want you to do good things in this world, and they will support you. So if you have an idea, do it. If you have an idea on how to end gun violence, how to help children, how to make this world a little brighter, decide to do it, let people know you want to do it, and you get support. And on that, thank you all for being here.
Thank you all very much. And thank you to anyone who's out there. This will be available online as well. So
Close it out now.
Closing it out.
Please be sure we've got your names. And we want to send it to our emails.
Do we know how many people signed in?
I don't know.
Thank you.